Hi. Ah, Could you tell I woke up like an hour or two ago? um, so drink the tea a little. Um, I have to get this done before like 4, so no real Pika ramble time. Uh, also check my posts. I think I posted something. My brain's kinda lagging at the moment. Let me go see. I mean, I posted a pic yesterday. I did not post anything important. I posted fan art. That's what I posted yesterday. Mentioned the blanket permission. Remember to send series to the recommendation post or like series one shots, whatever, so I can see them easier. But I think I'm gonna shut the hell up. This is chapter 4 of How Not to Survive Your Pet Death Worlder by Katydid and Selah Sweetbean. It hurt her pride, but Inca would admit she would be hopelessly lost without All Might. He had staggeringly nice spaceship, Hercules, that was full of food, spacesuits, translators, weapons, and anything else Inco might need. Azuka would be starstruck if he could see it. Could see. However, besides being better supplied, All Might was as capable as the comics implied. The muscly part was fiction, but he easily conversed with aliens who cowered in Inko's presence. I don't get it, Inko hissed after one exchange where a purple-furred alien stared at her in abject horror, but had no issue talking to All Might. Why are they so scared? Humans have an unfortunate reputation in space, but they don't cower from you. All Might shrugged. I've spent years proving myself, rescuing others, and learning their cultures. I suppose after a while the fear wore off. Regardless of the reason, All Might managed to lead them to Sax, where the retired station manager was living. His name was Grian, and although a retired station management, he also brokered information and questionably legal goods on the sides. I'm guessing working in the marketplace gave him insider details, and he used that to his advantage, which is illegal, but considering the lack of information on him, he's managed to keep a low profile. So he's smart, Ingo said grimly. Exactly. Slacks wasn't where Inco would have chosen to retire. Dense foliage stretched stories into the sky, creating pockets of darkness and brilliant light on the floor below that hurt Inco's eyes when crossing. Fungus crawled up ramshackle stone buildings, releasing a pungent smell whenever they stepped too close. The air was thick and sticky, carrying a scent of rotting wood and decomposing plants. The inhabitants watched as they passed, tensing as they saw All Might, but always reaching for their weapons when noting Inko. However, no one bothered them, allowing Inko and All Might to continue to Grian's dwelling. As they walked, a freezing sign on a wall flashed All Might's picture. His eyes dark and smile on his face, followed by a series of characters Inko recognizes numbers. What's that? She asked, pointing at the sign. All Might rubbed his neck sheepishly. Ah, that's my wanted poster from the Federation. Inko ground to a stop, ignoring the mud slurping at her feet. Your what? Wanted poster? I thought space loved you. Many do, but I have a, shall we say, complicated relationship with the Federation. I tend to poke my nose where, according to the Federation, I don't belong, and interfere. At first, they found it annoying, and I received several disgruntled messages. However, after I broke up an alien trafficking ring, things got complicated. How so? All Might flashed a dark smile. Several lead members of the Federation were funding it. They were less than pleased when that information got revealed. But a wanted poster? All Might shrugged. There were other things as well, and eventually they put on a bounty. After 50 bounty hunters failed, they upped the price. When that didn't work, they contacted the Assassins Guild. Assassins Guild? Echo repeated in horror. They weren't that difficult to beat. Human biology is pretty remarkable. Common poisons such as onions, raisins, chocolate, caffeine, alcohol, each could kill numerous alien species, but are considered a treat to us. Broken bones, cuts, and burns hurt and can sometimes kill us, but to other aliens, they're a death sentence. So none of their methods to kill you worked. Nope. A couple banged me up, put me out of commission for a week or two, or gave me a nasty scar, but I'm here. All Might spread his arms in victory. Inko forced herself to start moving again, walking alongside All Might. I knew we had a reputation, but nothing that intense. Yes, makes you marvel sometimes. Anyways, after a while, the Assassin Guild refused to send more people, and the bounty hunters gave up. But the posters remained. It almost became a joke of sort. It's almost become a joke of sorts. I'm regularly asked to pose with aliens next to them. Truthful, it's only boosted my popularity. Inko trudged alongside him, her mind spinning with the revelation. Grian was located in a massive rotting log, bark falling away to the ground where it sunk into the mud. Bugs scurried away as they entered, slipping into cracks in the wood. Inko's fingers itched for cleaning supplies and rags. The mom and her horrified to see the filth Grian called home. Wet moss squished underfoot, and the smell of compost and smoke hung in the air. Echo stifled a cough. What's if she hadn't left her respirator on the ship? All might. A sleazy voice called from the thick haze of smoke. What brings you to my humble dwelling? Information. And you came to me? An orange burn from a pipe glowed. Aren't I lucky? Please take a seat. Let me know what I can do for you. Waving away smoke, Inko and All Might stepped closer, taking a seat on two lumpy toadstools by a tree stump. Across from them, what looked like a giant green caterpillar lounged on a padded chair. Two long antennae protruded from his head. Small circular glasses rested over his eyes. And they didn't hide the large lumps and rolls of slimy flesh. Plump arms and stubby fingers emerged from each segment, creating 7 sets of arms total. Wrinkles creased around his eyes and mouth, looking like an aged fruit. On one arm, a long pipe burned, releasing wisps of white smoke. Graham sucked on it, and released a torrent of stinking smoke. We're looking for someone who we were told you last saw. All Might started, face unfazed. A set of cards lay on the stump table, each covered with glowing symbols. Slowly, Grian picked one up and laid it down on top of a careful pile. I've seen a lot of people. There was an incident at a marketplace you were managing. An incident between a shop owner and a human. Ah, that incident. Are you looking for Doug? We're looking for the human. Grian didn't reply, instead taking another drag on the pipe. The human? Yes, where is he? I don't know, Grian said, flipping over a card. He smiled, putting the flesh in a grotesque way, and placed it down. As, look at that regal strike. A winning move. All Might's gaze hardened. Where is the human boy? Gone. He was a problem, disrupted purchases and scared people there. I did my job and removed him from the premises. To where? Beneath the glasses, Grian's eyes glinted. You know who I am, All Might. I deal information. I don't simply give it away. Fine, what do you want then? A string of battering passed between them. Most of the numbers and currently going over Inko's head. However, judging by the smirk on Grian's face, the price was exorbitant. Inko's nails curled into her palm. She was useless in this, useless in getting her son back. Grian sighed and took another drag on his pipe. I'm afraid for such a low price I can't reveal such information. It isn't worth it, you see. His voice was regretful, but the smirk on his face revealed he felt anything but sad. Inko's temper snapped. Without thinking, she rose to her feet, knocking the tool stool behind her. Tell us where he is, she demanded. Grian ignored her, focusing on the pipe in his hand, as if Inko and her son were less than dirt beneath him. Addressing All Might, he said, was why I was ignored the human, but don't mistake that for ignorance. I recognize a death worlder when I see one. Control your pet, All Might, or leave my dwelling. Angry tears rolled down Inko's face as she struggled to hold back her trembling. Why did All Might get such different treatment? Surely it couldn't be because of his fame as a hero. Someone like Grian wouldn't respect that. But her suspicions were overshadowed by her anger and fear for her son. It's okay, Inko, whispered, hands reaching hers and giving a reassuring squeeze. We'll find him. Grian smirked and took a drag. Well behaved. Better trained than the last human. Rage filled Inko's gaze. Lunging forward, she grabbed the pipe and snapped it in half, uncaring of the embers that singed her skin. Grian screeched as several embers hit his blobby flesh, but his pinch increased when Inko kneed him in the middle of one of his sections. Gagging, watery fluid spewed from his mouth and onto Inko's face. But she had her eyes on her prize, the two antennae dangling from Grian's forehead. Latching onto them, she pulled them down, one of them crackling, sickening under her grip. Grian's eyes were now inches from hers, allowing her to glare into the beady black depths. You will tell me where my son is right now, or I will slowly tear you apart limb by limb as you scream for mercy until you regret your dusting form ever existed. Taking a breath, Inko calmed herself and whispered a sickly sweet. Do I make myself clear? Yes, yes, Grian blubbered. I sold him to All for One. All for One has him. Thank you. Iko said, releasing her hold on Grian and allowing him to slip to the floor, blubbering from pain. Let's go, she told All Might, reaching out a hand and trudging him to the door. As Tomura staggered into the hospital bay, he plotted murder against his fellow League members for abandoning him to fight the human alone. His ire vanished when he found Toga and Dabi lying in adjacent beds, doctors surrounding Toga, fussing over bandages all over her body. Tomura ran over, not knowing how to show his fear for her other than anger. He growled, "I'll kill you if she dies." "Her kind is durable," the doctor assured him. "Please step aside so we can scan her for internal damage." Toga mumbled, "I want to become a human." Her limb twitched, a patch of flesh appearing before fading away. Tomura relaxed. If Toga was well enough to ramble creepily, then she would live. He turned to his other friend. Dobby had a patch over one eye and bandages on both arms. "Anything broken?" Tomura asked curtly, the closest he could come to showing concern without acting weak. Dobby moaned, "Only my pride, my heart, and my very soul." Twice ran into the hospital, his carapace bleeding and his eyes puffy. "Dobby, Toga, I finally found you." His other head added, "I thought you were dead, but I told myself you'd surely survive." Tomer rounded on him. "You should get examined by the doctors. You took a nasty fall." Weiss held up a knife and a stuffed toy. "I brought Toga's comfort knife and Dobby's comfort toy. They can't sleep without them." "No!" Dobby screamed. He hid under the bed. "Get it away from me!" For the first time, Tomura realized why Dobby had said the ugly human looked like a comfort object. The soft, pink stuffed animal that his species cuddled at night sure did look a lot like a human. Now, Tomura once feared League was afraid of toys. What had the human done to them? "Sorry." Twice wobbled and fell over. The doctors rushed to surround him. Another doctor guided Tomura to a chair and applied salve to his bruises. He batted them away when they tried to lead him to a bed. "I need to speak to All for One about the damage to the station. Where is he?" A doctor gestured at the private hospital room in the back. Tomura had a high enough security access to open the door. Alfron had placed the human on a large bed, better suited for his own species' size. He fussed over the murderous creature, carefully applying salve to the bruise on his arm. It irritated Tomura to see the culprit of all the chaos treated so gently. He cleared his throat. "Master, I'm busy, Tomura." All for One's tone broached. No argument. After tending to each cut and bruise, he wrapped the human up in a blanket and stroked his hair. Tomura had never seen All for One with such an adoring smile on his face. It was frankly creepy. "Hand me the collar," All for One ordered. A metal collar covered in gleaming green jewels rested on the counter. He lifted it up with his tail and tossed it over. Oliphant fastened the collar around the unconscious human's neck. "You should be honored, my little biter. I've never let any of my previous pets wear my brother's collar." "Your brother?" Tomura blurted out. "Ah, yes, my brother. My very first pet." Alfred chuckled, a hissing sound. "From the expression on your face, you fail to understand. Finks develop their tentacles in puberty, but my brother had a rare mutation that meant he never sprouted tentacles. The poor weak thing. On my home planet, this scaling him to the status of a slash factious pass. Hmm, it's a bit hard to translate. It means worthless trash or not a person. The most literal translation would be a creature so lowly that it should be honored to be tortured to death because it that would mean it served some small purpose entertaining its superiors. My people do not tolerate weakness. Normally no slash fictitious pass would survive a single rotation of the planet after failing to grow tentacles. However, I stepped in and took my dear little brother under my protection. I killed anyone who tried to harm him, and he lived happily under my care. Despite his high degree of faith in his master, Tomura still had his doubts. If he'd been turned into his deceased older sister's pet, he wouldn't have been happy one bit. His people valued family so highly. He could not shake how uncomfortable this made him. What happened to your brother? Alfred exhaled a long hiss. My only mistake was getting two chew toys to keep my brother company, or become his snacks. The feral animals broke out and took my little brother with him. I've never experienced such a great loss. Not even it at all my hands. I tried to get my brother back and failed. I don't like to talk about that time of my life. There was an edge to the master's voice that made Tomura flinch. I've obtained 4 other pets since then, but none of them could ever replace my dear Yoshi. All for one caressed the human's neck just above the collar. Not until this one. He has Yochi's eyes. The resemblance were especially strong in his hate-filled gaze when he went for my throat. Tomura could tell any effort to persuade his master to do the sensible thing and space the human would be met with failure. Nonetheless, he tried. This station hasn't proven secure enough. Perhaps we should move your pet somewhere else. Somewhere far, far away. Alferon said, this caller has a tracking device. It will be easier to find him next time he escapes. Next time? Tomura's eyes twitched. Master, the base can't survive a next time. Then you better be more competent in the future. All for one rustled his tentacles. I understand my cute little pet ran through a force field, but how did he get across the water? Tomura's shoulders sagged. I don't know. Then let's find out. All for one picked up his pet and swept out of the room. Tomura trailed after, protesting, Master, you don't understand. Several critical systems were damaged. Our station can't move, the food processors are producing sludge, and human annihilate an entire squad of Nomu soldiers. Patting the cheek of his pet, All for One said, I knew you were talented. Tomura moaned, ugh. All for One carried his pet to the enclosure, disabled the force field, and put the bridge down. Tomura followed sulkily. At least my dear pet's home looks unharmed. All for One murmured, oh, what's that? His gaze fell on a huddled pile of black fur lying at the edge of the island. The alien lay so still, it was difficult to tell if he was alive or dead. Tomura frowned. Some curious idiot must have snuck in to see the human, lowered the bridge, then gotten killed. It could have easily been Toga. She tried to sneak in several times. Tomura was glad that at least it hadn't been his idiot bearing the blame. My pet's cuteness is irresistible, but anyone who coverts what is mine deserves death. Alfred walked past the corpse, stepping on its tail. The pilot moaned in a semi-conscious manner. He was still alive? Alfred set the human down in his nest of blankets. Perhaps my pet is feeling antsy because he lacks entertainment. The fool responsible for escape can serve as a chew toy. All for one brushed the human's head one last time, then turned to leave. Brutal. Tomra nearly felt pity. He was mainly just glad it hadn't been Toga left in such a state. He followed his master. Just before the door closed, the unfortunate soul stirred. Tomura glimpsed at the feline face. He knew Azawa. Tomura nearly turned around and went back, but it was too late. The door slammed close, sealing the human with his prey. Azuka woke up in bits and pieces, a flash of light against his eyes, and his arms struggling against his blankets. He threw him off with a scream. He'd been so close. He'd nearly reached the escape pod, then that bastard All for One taken him down again. Azuku hated All for One, hated his paralyzing tentacles, hated everything. Tears dripped down his face. Mom, I'm sorry. He whispered. He rubbed his eyes. He wouldn't give up. He was getting home to his mother, no matter what. But he lost his rare chance to escape. Another miracle like the door being left open would be unlikely to happen again. Security around him would become even tighter. He counted himself lucky he hadn't woken up in a box. Azuku's neck felt heavy. He went up to touch. His hand went up to touch. He had a collar around his neck. So this was his punishment? Izuku had already known he was nothing except a dumb animal to these people. Yet still his tears came again. He buried his face into his hands. There would be a reckoning for this. Someday, somehow, Izuku would make All for One pay. He wiped away his tears as his grief crystallized as fury. A snarl escaped his lips. He punched the closest tree. A frightened yelp came from the branches above. Azuku looked up. A feline alien hid up the tree, gazing down at him. Tomra had been busy all afternoon, overseeing repairs. The crew was frightened. Quite a few people had abandoned ship. It was unusual to get deserters, given how much people feared Alfron. It was a lot that they feared the human even more. After an entire day of repairs, Tomra returned to his private quarters only to eat a grayish sludge. Everyone was dining on sludge until the main food processor could be repaired. All for One had a private food processor, and so did the human. But of course, All for One didn't share. And while the rest of the ship had been choking down tasteless slushies, All for One insisted that his pets still only get only the best food. The first time someone complained, All for One and defeated them to the human instead. The memory made Tomura twitch. He wondered if Izawa had been eaten yet. Although Tomura did not generally pay much attention to his lessers, he had been fond of Izawa. The feline alien had been polite and efficient worker. Tomura liked people who didn't chatter at him when they worked together. In Tomura's eyes, the feline's sleek muscles and calm demeanor had been cool. Azawa hadn't been Pack, but Tomura still didn't like to think of him being ripped to pieces by a bloodthirsty human. He prayed that at least Azawa's death would be swift. Azuko gaped at the feline alien up the tree. It was difficult to read alien expressions, but he was pretty sure this one was terrified of him. If the feline alien had anything was anything like an Earth cat's, His lashing tails were a sign of distress. His claws dug into the branch. Why had the other aliens abandoned this one? Izuku didn't think it was an unintentional oversight. The alien was too big and dark-colored to be missed. Was he being punished for letting Izuku out? Or for being here at all? Why had the alien come to this prison in the first place? A fellow prisoner could be either an ally or someone to rat him out to the guards if he tried to escape. Obviously, Izuku would prefer the former. Izuku pointed it at himself and said, Izuku. The alien followed his movements wary. Izuku tried pointing again. Human, Izuku, then pointed at the alien. The alien still did not reply. The lack of response crushed Izuku's budding hope, leaving the bitter of disappointment in his mouth. Person who treated him like a monster. At least the alien could stop him from escaping while stuck up in a tree. Izuku went to the food processor and made himself a meal. After his running around had left him hungry, he made a second meal for his fellow prisoner. While holding the plate in one arm, he used the other to lift himself on to the branch and offer up the plate. The alien yowled in terror. Izuku nearly dropped the plate. He regained his balance and climbed down. Got it. You don't want me anywhere near you. Had the alien not realized that Izuku could climb? Had he believed the tree was a safe place? Izuku set the food down on the floor of the tree. Here, you can come down when you're ready. I'm not going to attack you. Bitterly, he itched at his collar. I'm not the monster here. The alien's gaze went to the collar around Izuku's neck. Unmistakably sympathetic flashed across his eyes. He mewed. Meow. It was the first time anyone had shown any signs they thought would have been done to Izuku was wrong. It nearly made Izuku cry again. That one small moment of being treated like a person. After an hour of nerve-wracking waiting, the human finally curled up in its makeshift nest and went to sleep. It stayed awake far longer than Azawa's species did, and the strain of remaining alert turned Azawa's head woozy. He needed food, and he needed to sleep before the human woke up again. Exhaustion tugged at Azawa's limbs as he climbed down the tree, remembering with a shiver how easily the human had pulled itself up. Azawa's species has adapted with the ability to climb and traverse difficult terrain. It was one of the biological advantages he had, and not one he'd known that humans possessed. That moment when the human had climbed up the tree had shaved a few rotations off his life. Plants crunched underfoot as he landed, the noise deafening in Izawa's ears. He watched the human intently, ready to flee back up the tree at the first sight of wakefulness, but the human remained sleeping. The plate of offered food still rested at the base of the tree. Unfortunately, Azawa didn't know if the human food would be safe for him to eat. It'd be better to go directly to the food dispenser so he could control what came out. Creeping to the food dispenser, observed the tube with a critical eye. The design appeared similar to what they had in the cafeteria. The blue button would produce default food, but there was a risk it had been modified for humans. It had tried to share its food, Zawa thought, an act of grace that was unusual considering the rumors of hostility. Hopefully the food wouldn't kill Izawa, nor the human kill Izawa when he saw he ate its food. Picking up the food pellet, Izawa sniffed it suspiciously, then took a bite and immediately wrinkled his nose. It was basic food packaging, chock full of nutrients, but tasteless. He was tempted to mess with the machine and make something with flavor. but doing so could wake the human. Sighing, he resigned himself to the bland meal. Eating enough to soothe his cramping stomach, Azawa retreated over to a bush located several paces from the den. The ground was uncomfortable, but better than sleeping in a tree. Turning in a circle, Azawa curled up, wrapping his tails around himself and glancing at the human. Asleep, the harsh lines around its face softened, looking less like a feral creature and more like a kit's comfort object. It lay curled into a tight ball, arms wrapped around itself as if it were a prey species hiding from a predator. Several blankets had been rolled into mounts and placed by its sides. It reminded Azawa of a pack species like Tonras, huddling together in a tight group while they rested. The human had a pack, Azawa realized, but it was left to huddle in the dark alone. Pack species suffered greatly without members of their pack, growing moody, restless, depressed, and occasionally aggressive. Pity tugged at Azawa's heart, and an unconscious soothing purr rumbled in his chest. The human shifted in his sleep, making a sad moaning sound, then stopped. For a brief, insane moment, Zawa felt the urge to comfort the human in its nest. But that was suicidal, Azawa reminded himself, and with a shake of his head, he closed his eyes to get as much sleep as he could before the human awoke. Having sent Hercules into orbit Saxis in a waiting pattern, Toshinori slipped out of the cockpit and down the stairs to the living quarters. It was sparsely furnished with a sad lump of a couch and a wobbly table Toshinori had been meaning to fix. With a guest on board, Toshinori regretted not having not used any money to spruce up the inside. Not that Inko minded, having cleaned herself after he beat down on Gran. She was now flitting through the living space, rummaging in storage to put together a meal for them. Inko was in an incredibly good mood, Toshinori thought, which would make this next conversation that more unpleasant. Clearing his throat, he said, "We have a slight problem." Inko looked up, her green hair falling into her face in a way that Toshinori aching to brush it aside. "What's the problem?" she asked. "We know who has Zuko." "That's the problem," Toshinori said, taking a seat on the couch and gesturing for her to do the same. "How familiar are you with alien history and current events?" "I know what we know back on Earth. So nothing," Toshinori thought with a grimace. "All for One, how do I say this, is the biggest bastard to ever exist in the history of space." "My ex-husband might disagree," Inko said with a small smile. Toshinori's words clogged at his throat. Whoever had divorced this woman was a fool, he thought. But he forced himself to continue. "He's a warlord from a frozen over ocean planet where only the most ruthless survive. On his planet, All for One is considered the most vicious. Ha- Having conquered that planet and then invaded space after. He's conquered over 10 planets and influenced even more through intrigue and violence. Many fear mentioning his name in case it summons him." Inko's face turned ashen. "Miyazuku," she whispered. "It's probably okay." At Izuku's disgruntled outrage, Toshinori sighed. "By that I mean he's most likely not dead or horribly injured. All for One has an odd habit of taking aliens as pets. My surrogate mother was one of those before I rescued her. There were 6 others before her, including his younger brother. The disgust crossing Inko's face perfectly summarized the situation. So he's an insane bastard. Yes. Thankfully, in this case, it means your son most likely has not been physically harmed, but we do need to get him as out of there as quickly as possible. Do you know where he is? Inko asked. Toshori winced. Unfortunately, I do not. After my last raid on one of his smuggling operations, he's gone quiet. Could the Federation help with him? I know you said they don't like you, but if he's as big of a problem as you say, with a snort, Toshinori shook his head. The Federation ignores him. The cowards are too scared to oppose him directly, and so they ignore his rule of space's underworld. Then we go back to that disgusting Rian and force him to tell us where All for One is. Iko snarled, her hands curling into fists. He doesn't know, but I know someone who might. Inko's eyes shone with hope. You do? Yes, the Federation might be the legitimate government, but they ultimately have less influence than they think. They're close-minded speciesists who fool themselves into thinking some civilizations are better than others, and wish to keep governance within a select group of aliens. However, not everyone thinks the same. I have a friend who runs an organization called UA, set on establishing peaceful relationships between various species. He also happens to be the smartest being I've ever met. If anyone can find Izuku, it's Nezu. And he'll help us? Inko said. He better, or I'll stop bringing him earthen tea. Omake time! Among Frinks, All for One is a big softy for showing love through torture, not murder. All for One, my pet even bites my throat like my brother used to, in order to show his affection. Tomura, are you sure that your brother was showing affection? Because in every brotherly story you tell, it sounds like he was just trying to kill you. Alfron, yes, that's how my people show love. I had to hold him, I had to hold back knowing how weak my little brother was, but I always appreciated how he never once held back against me. Alfron never met a mistake he wouldn't make again, even harder. Alfred, my only mistake with my little brother was giving him those chew toys who broke out. Clearly, my new pet also needs a chew toy. Yoshi, your only mistake was making second and third year pets too? You don't think that you don't think you made a single other mistake in how you treated me? Alfred, nope. That's it. Yoshi, I want to kill you so badly, but I know you'll enjoy my attempts. All for One's current legacy. All for One, you can be my replacement brother, Azuku. I want to kill everyone on this space station, but especially you. All for One, good! You already know your lines! Holy shit. Sorry, this is such a funny, omake. Sorry. I got, like, interrupted, like, 3 times during this recording, honestly. But, that is the end of this. Normally I would record more, but I have plans with a friend later, so your guys are out of luck today. Bye. Bye.